Welcome to Fine Wineries, where great wines are discovered. Antica Terra Vineyards in Amity, Oregon, home to great Pinot Noir.
I'm Maggie Harrison. I'm the winemaker and one of the owners of Antica Terra. And I'm also the winemaker of Lillian. We are standing at our estate vineyard in Antica Terra. The vineyard itself, this original planting, was planted in 1989. And then they continued planting to finish out 6 acres by the year 1998. The original owners planted 7 different clones of Pinot Noir on 6 acres, and they made wine from this property until 2004. I started making wine. I was the assistant winemaker at Senequinon Winery down in California from 1998 until 2006. In 2005, my partners bought Antica Terra Vineyard and they asked me to be the winemaker. My initial reaction was to say no, because I had it set in my mind that I made Syrah in California, but they invited me up to see the vineyard. I took one look at it and called my family and said, I'm moving to Oregon. I could clearly see in the first 25 seconds that we were up here how much potential there was at this site. I liked very much some of the wines that had been made from this property, but I was really anxious to get my own hands in the soil up here and see what I could do to push it even further. So we can walk down to the vineyard and take a look at the grapes. We're probably getting ready to start harvesting next week. It's a situation again where we're really, really close. But as you can see, the weather's closing in on us. So as usually happens in Oregon, it's a very fine line between how we get things completely and perfectly ripe and how we weather the storms that are bound to come at some point in the fall. When we came into this vineyard, we kept asking everyone that had been here before, the vineyard manager who worked here from the beginning, the former owners of the property, when did you plant this? And they kept saying, this block was planted in 1989. But looking at these vines, they don't look anything like 20-year-old vines. Normally when you see a vine that's 20 years old, the trunk is maybe this big around. But everything in the vineyard was very, very stunted. In some ways that could be a really big problem. But luckily for us, sort of everything in the vineyard was stunted in balance. What we found was that the vines themselves were planted on, there's about 10 to 18 inches of topsoil, and then below that is nothing but parent rock. And so the vines themselves have had to struggle extremely hard just to establish themselves. And so while you would usually see a vine much bigger with a bigger canopy and greater fruit set, we get tiny, tiny clusters with very small berries and very little fruit set on the vine, which, as you know, a hard-working vine with very low yields is always going to produce fruit that is more expressive, more concentrated, and more distinctive. That is, for me, the most exciting thing about being able to work with this project is that the fruit itself is so distinctive. The original property is 6 acres that was planted from 1989 until about the year 1998. When we bought the property in 2005, we bought a little bit of additional land that ran contiguous with the existing property and began to clear 20 additional acres for some new plantings. Last year we planted the first 5 acres of our new plantings, and we will continue up this hillside this year and next year. So the first 5 acres that we planted last year are over here. We're continuing up over the hill this way, and we will plant another 4 acres this year, and we'll continue over and back down to the west, to the southwestern exposure, in another year or 2 with the last 4 to 5 acres. We're standing in the newest block of Antica Terra. This block was planted last year. This is Pommard clone. These vines would be considered first leaf, so they were just planted this past fall, and we won't get fruit from them for another 2 to 3 years, depending on how it goes. Our whole job with these vines right now is just to take care of them and help them establish themselves so that they can grow in this, what is very unfriendly soil and rock, so that they can produce fruit for us that is as distinctive as the rest of the fruit on our property. I think that everyone, when you talk to any winemaker, will always say, well, this site is the most special site. This is the only place you could make, high quality Pinot Noir in this valley. And that's clearly not true. Otherwise it wouldn't make any sense. What I do think about this site is not that it's the best place to grow Pinot Noir. I'm trying to make it that, but it is extremely distinctive. In just the 3 years that I've been working with this fruit, no matter what, at 40 paces, when you come to any barrel, anytime and smell it, it is always clearly Antica Terra. And so year to year and block after block, it's not always, there are all different expressions from this vineyard. We're working with 7 different clones on different exposures on this little bench, but each one by itself you can clearly identify as coming from this estate. And that's something that's really, really lucky for me to be able to work with.